Hey everybody, how are ya?
Doing well, thanks for asking.
Guys, we have got a legend in our midst, I would say, in the Dallas community for
She is
sure.
a legend. It's exciting today.
We are blessed to get to talk to Carol Goglia today. She's been busy on the professional and personal fronts for several years. She's a wife, a mom of 3. She's a breast cancer survivor, and she also spearheaded the marketing communications for Communities Foundation of Texas. And if you're not a Texan or a North Texan, you may not know this, but there is the North Texas Giving Day, and it is a huge thing. In fact, it's so huge that it has raised $290 million since it launched. Probably even more than that, because I think they're raising like every second.
Yeah, and they're like it's barely been going on for more than a decade. So
I think it started
staggering.
at about 4 million, and now they're over 50 million year to year. So it has just really exploded. So that is part of Carol's story. She's going to share with that today. She is now at an amazing nonprofit that is really uniting a lot of the schools in the Dallas community called United to Learn. And so we're going to hear all about that, but I can't wait for you to meet Carol. So let's kick it to Carol. Carol, would you fill in a few dots of your story and kind of introduce yourself?
Excited to connect with you today. I am excited to connect with this community because I am one of you in the nonprofit sector. I actually started out in branding at Frito-Lay and PepsiCo.
Oh, how
Nice.
Yes, exactly. And so brought a lot of that good on how to communicate in mass to the nonprofit sector when I moved over to Communities Foundation.
Love that.
And then now I'm at United to Learn.
It's awesome. We call ourselves marketers disguised as fundraisers, so we totally get that. We love that you can transfer selling chips into making people do really amazing things.
Frito-Lays too.
I know, right?
I love Fritos. They're such a good chip. I know.
And Lay's. Who doesn't love them both?
You could like sell that with conviction, because you
Yes,
believe in the
and they're
product.
good for you.
No kidding. There you go.
I'm not kidding. One of the projects I worked on there was all about the heart healthy oils that go into the chips. And believe it or not, there's actually an FDA study and clinical trial eating 1 ounce a day of Fritos, Cheetos, Doritos, or Tostitos that showed to lower your cholesterol.
Oh my
joke.
gosh.
This is
This
what
might be
I-
our
for
one
this-
good thing of the day.
This
Go
is
have
what
an
I
ounce
need
of
in my
chips.
life. Someone to convince me of the scientific efficacy of eating more chips. I love
1 ounce
this.
a day. You don't need to eat too much.
Guys,
but
if
eat
you-
1 ounce a day.
If you had any questions of if Carol's a good marketer, there you go. I already am craving chips, and we are 1 minute into this call.
There we go. So I think everybody who has ever been in fundraising and you're trying to figure out what is the secret sauce to fundraising online and having a global movement, we're all very familiar with Giving Tuesday. And I want to know just about the genesis of North Texas Giving Day, how that came about and how you were able to just launch what is now this culturally embraced day that your town like of several million
Like one of the biggest
And
cities in the
suburbs.
US.
All of North
suburbs.
Texas.
Yeah, and people just rally around this concept of giving to the cause that moves your heart. It doesn't matter where it is, as long as it's local. I just think it's so fantastic. Give us a little historical background on this.
Right. Well, I was actually not there at the very beginning. My colleague, Brent Christopher, got the idea from Oklahoma, actually. The first Giving Day was in Oklahoma, in Tulsa. And so Tulsa, Colorado, and North Texas Giving Day here in Dallas-Fort Worth started all in 2009. And it was just an idea. Actually, it was first about the database and getting a nonprofit database together so that people could give wisely locally. And really, to get the nonprofits to enter themselves in the database, they needed an incentive to put themselves in the database. And so this idea of a match day came together. And so that first year, it was a dollar for dollar match. And I think they raised $600,000, and the match was gone in like 20 minutes.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And they started it at midnight that year. It started at midnight, and then it moved to, I think it started at midnight, maybe the first 2 years. And then, the second year they started it at 8 a.m., I believe. And so they changed the slogan to get up and give, so people would know that you got up in the morning instead of staying up late at night. Yes. And then I came along in the third year in 2011. And so those first 2 years, there were 400 nonprofits and then 500 nonprofits. And it went from 4 million until 5 million raised. And then the year that I joined, we really, really ramped up the marketing and PR efforts. And so we, along with our colleagues, Spark Farm, and great internal team and lots of community partners, really put together a toolkit where we really were building the movement. And so in that year, we had over 1,000 nonprofits and raised $10 million. And the next year it went to 14. And the next year it went to 25.
Can I just ask you, as a fundraiser, don't you just have that feeling like, oh my gosh, I have to literally top this next year? It's like this kind of albatross, like the success just kind of starts to catch up
Panics
to you at some point. Yeah.
Totally. It does panic you. It does panic you. And we also had a bonus pool. We raised this. And so after the first year, everyone said, we do not want the money to be gone in 20 minutes. So if you could just spread it out between all of us, raise your pool and then evenly split it out between all of us. And we also had a nonprofit advisory council, and we check in with them every year and say, check us on all these things. And, we want this to serve you. It was created for donors to give wisely, but it very much involves the nonprofits and how they can best be served, and given to. So it's very much a collective effort, which I think is also part of the success. And one of the things that I love is just the whole power to the people aspect of North Texas Giving Day, and really the whole Giving Day movement worldwide, is that you really are putting the power in the hands of the people. They can give where they want, and then the nonprofits can use that for good in so many ways. And the topping it is always a concern. But I will say that another question that people always ask is, aren't nonprofits competing against each other? And isn't this does it devolve into some negative thing?
And intuitive, maybe.
Right. And I have never, ever seen that. I mean, it has truly been the most joyful thing. We have kickoffs. This year was different because of COVID. And so everything needed to be done digitally and virtually. But before, we got up to, I think, 6 different kickoffs all around the Metroplex. And they were just rallies for good, people helping each other, giving each other ideas. We even contemplated having, little interest group areas, education and animals, and having category captains, which I, of course, would learn from my brand marketing days, but on ways that we can really help each other and collaborate in the most amazing partnerships. You held up that supplement that the Dallas Morning News does. And so people come together and jointly fund those ads. They do all sorts of, they do all sorts of just really, really neat collaborations, going together in for a prize. It was such a life-giving opportunity. And nonprofits, another thing that I just love so much is that when we would do our kickoffs each year, as you all know, being in the space, people that are called to nonprofit work, they are there for the mission, and they are there to help kids or save animals or find a cure. And fundraising is uncomfortable for so many people, and you don't want to ask for money, and you just feel awkward. And so this day really gave everyone permission to ask, because it's like, well, everyone's doing this. So I'm just going to mention that I'm involved, and, it's not a big deal. If you want to help out, you can. And I remember one woman at a kickoff that we were doing in Fort Worth, she said, that's how she felt. And she was there working alongside one of her volunteers. And she worked at a childcare center at the back of a church, and they were trying to expand or get their own space. They had more demand than they had space. And she was working with a volunteer who was coming in, and he actually worked at a construction firm, but I think he was tutoring or just helping in some way. And so she mentioned that North Texas Giving Day was happening, and they were thinking about what they could do. And she didn't know how to get a matching fund, and she didn't know how to do this. Well, he ended up saying, we can help you from a construction perspective. I can fund your matching gift. I can, do all these things, which then let them double in space and double the number of kids that they could serve, all because she was having this casual conversation that she only got the courage to do because everyone else was doing it.
I love just
That's awesome.
how it sort of pushed her out on the gangplank. And I mean, she sensed that there were sharks circling down at the bottom, but it wasn't. It was like this incredible opportunity to, I like the idea of giving permission, because for some reason these days we all just need someone to give us permission to go into these spaces. And what a powerful example of how he was probably looking for a way to come into her mission and be, be a part of it, whether in a small way or a large way. And he was able to give his gifts. That's a great, great story. And I think what is so exciting to me is I'm sitting here picturing in my head the visual of these 6 places that are going to launch on Giving Day. And it seems like, when you're about to have a gala or something in fundraising and you're in the momentum and the intensity are starting to build, and you're in your gown, and not John, but in your gown, and you're like feeling, and it's like that moment with Rocky where like the eye of the tiger, you're pumping yourselves up. And I just think this is such a cool way to engage people in philanthropy that's safe. It's meeting them in the spaces where they are. It's very hands off. You can let them come in. And I just think it's so fantastic, because really at the end of the day, you have so much work to do at the end of that day, because you have all these new donors. They have come in from all over the place. There's a level of stewardship. It's just a great, talk about the cultural shift that's happened in Dallas, in the Dallas area since this day has taken off.
It's really, really, really been amazing. And it rallies people to come together like nothing else. It's really just been amazing. Another thing that was such a favorite story from Giving Day, we had of course, when we were spurring all of these people to ask at this time, you also then think, oh no, people complain of their email boxes filling up, or, those kind of things. And so one of the media partners that we were working with, she was covering some of our blogs, and she said, I don't know, I'm getting some pushback that maybe I'm running too many. And so we said, of course, we'll work with you. We want this to be great for everyone. And that year, one of our community legends passed away. Her name was Ebby Holliday. She was a realtor. She was, I believe, 103 when she passed away.
Aww.
And she was just really an amazing community pillar, and have done so much for our community and so much for women entrepreneurs, and really, really some neat things. And she passed away, and her funeral was actually on North Texas Giving Day. And every year, we've also had tornadoes, we've had hurricanes, and we've had a lot of things on North Texas Giving Day, but nothing seems to slow it down. The force of good is too strong. And so we were feeling a little self-conscious, and our CEO at the time went to the funeral and to, of course, pay his respects. And we could not believe this, but the woman that was taking the reins after her, or who had been, president of the organization, got up and in her eulogy, she stood up and she said, "It is perfectly fitting that today we are gathering to celebrate the life of Ebby Holliday, because today is North Texas Giving Day, and it is a day about giving back. And I would want everyone that is here today to give back to someone that is close to their heart in honor of Ebby."
And how appropriate. That does not feel schmarmy in any way. That is the spirit of which this woman has kind of, led her life. And I what a testament to that, and the awareness level to get that out into that circle. Is really powerful. That's a great story.
It was so amazing. It still gives me chills. And everyone then just said, that just flipped the switch for, this is the day we get all these emails. Like, this is just what we do. And it makes us feel good, that there's so many places to support and so many good things to do. And it reminds us before year end and after the summer doldrums. And it really just becomes a movement and a talking, a conversation starter of who are you giving to this year?
Now, Carol, this, P.S. I love that story. I had the chills right along with you. This is a story of a giving day that you kind of looked at the calendar and picked a day, right? This is not just going on the Giving Tuesday, which is great and it has its own ups and downs. But could you help, a nonprofit that isn't connected to that? What's the benefit of circling a date on the calendar and just putting your emphasis on that? Could you kind of give some practical guidance to someone that wants to get started at their own charity?
Oh, for sure. So yeah, I mean, Giving Tuesday is also, that is a nationally international now day. And that started after we had already started Giving Day. So people were pretty set with, we asked the nonprofit, should we move to that day? And they loved it staying where it was. So it could be incremental to year in giving. But there are communities all around the country that do them on different days. So there's some in May and there's some, at other times. And then there's also Giving Tuesday. And then this year we did Giving Tuesday in May for COVID. Which ended up being another great success. The sense of urgency, no matter when you set it, I know a lot of universities are setting them up just on a particular day. I went to UT for grad school in University of Texas, and they do 40 hours for the 40 acres. And my undergrad, I went to Washington and Lee. They also do a Giving Day. I think many, many schools are doing it now. And sometimes they pick a founding date or, a date that, or it may or may not be significant to them. They just pick a date that's good in their fundraising cycle. The sense of urgency is powerful no matter when you do it. And so having some type of incentive funds or prizes, I've seen a lot of groups do things that, have friendly competition among the branches of a YMCA or amongst the schools of a college or amongst, the dogs versus the cats or, the, anything that you can do like that I think just adds to the interest. The sense of urgency is huge. And there's something about being a part of something bigger than yourself, I think, that shows that you get it. I mean, there's no one cause that is it. We
Right.
all are interactive. If children aren't fed, they can't learn. If, everything interacts. If a family is not economically stable, they can't provide for the family. If someone is in a health situation, they can't, health is the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You can't do something past that. So I think it shows that we're all connected. And I truly believe that we are better together, and that what you get by being together with others is more, you can go fast alone, but you can go farther together.
I think that's what I like so much about these sort of strategies for online giving, because, to put it into context, our alma mater does this one day in the spring, and it just adds so many layers of connectivity to it. And what you just said is exactly demonstrative of what they do. This college will be pitted against this college, and the way that they interface with their donors, to me, is so fascinating, because they'll say, the College of Education, they're going to go to their donors and say, okay, we're going to try to find $50,000 of donor money to match, the first $50,000 for scholarships. And then somebody over on the vet med side may say, hey, we're really trying to buy this piece of equipment. And so let's get a donor that can put in 10 grand. And there's just so many wonderful ways to log in and see the university's giving day, where it's like, oh no, the School of Art, is falling behind. I literally made a donation one year in honor of John, because you're welcome. It was my joy.
I remember that letter.
Yes, because it was like, I could see that the School of Art was like falling behind. It's like, I don't have a connection other to the School of Art other than, it gave me John as my intern almost 20 years ago. So it was great to be able to see that level of competition come through, and you can just interface with people immediately in message boards. Or, I'm texting my girlfriend and saying, oh, journalism broadcasting's falling behind. We need to get in there. And it's just, for someone like me, I'm very competitive. So it plays into that, but I also want to give in a way that means something to me. And so I just really applaud the spirit of creativity that you had in creating this day. And I think one of the questions I have is, how does a nonprofit cut through the noise? Because you did say that they're kind of competing against each other, but how do you get your message out there? John was holding up the insert that's in the Dallas Morning News that came out that Julie was good enough to drive up from Dallas for us this weekend, which is the Giving Day insert. And it's like 40 pages, and it's full of nonprofits sharing why their mission is important and giving kind of just those top brass points. And I just think, how do you stand out when you're one of thousands of nonprofits?
Yeah, and there's over 3,300 this year participating in Giving Day. We're actually in North Texas Giving Day season right now. The site is live at northtexasgivingday.org. So if your listeners are on, they can listen to that or look at it. That is always a challenge. I think really, though, it's about getting to the core of what you stand for and what you're solving for someone. And every cause is not going to appeal to every person, but I think when you're true to the cause that you are doing, that will resonate with who it's supposed to resonate with. And so if you can tell those compelling stories, I think a lot of it is about storytelling. It's about testimonials. It is about showing how you put their dollars to work, and what kind of difference that's making. I know us at United to Learn, we are, we do a lot of stories about individuals, and how their lives have been improved, and as well as just the results, So when we have been working, before I was here, clearly, but for the past 5 years, the students that have been a part of our programs, their literacy achievement in our schools is up 13%, which is over the county and the district and the state. So that is a really powerful stat. And, that appeals to the head. Another message might appeal to the heart. We have a lot of those heart stories. Our schools were hit by the tornado last year in October. So there were many, many families that, no longer had their uniforms. Our Dallas ISD schools used uniforms, that their families were working really hard to make everything come together. One working mom had just saved up her salary from her 4 different jobs and saved up to buy bunk beds for her boys. And that had been wiped out. And, the community swept in and said, we've got to get those bunk beds back for those boys. We've got to get and the SEL strategies that it takes to cope with those things. And telling the stories about how the counselor was ready when the family walked in without their shoes on, still in their pajamas, and how she could work with that family and then get them back on track so that they'd be ready to learn. So I think those are the ways that, getting back to how you stand out, I think it's the storytelling that connects to the heart, and then having some results that connect to the head, so that they can, feel what you feel about your cause and then be inspired to join hands with you.
I love that. It's so much of the threads that we see in so many conversations, that it's storytelling helps set you apart, and just this abundance mindset that there's enough for everybody, that you just need to find your people. Each nonprofit needs to find their tribe that wants to support this cause that's going to resonate with them. So I love that. So will you tell us about your own pivot, professional pivot? I know you really rallied the community to raise all these funds through Giving Day, and now you're rallying the Dallas independent school districts through this piece, which Dallas, if you haven't been to Dallas, it's huge. Like, it is sprawlingly huge. So please share about United to Learn and kind of what you're doing now.
Yes. So United to Learn is a collaborative nonprofit that changes lives by transforming the relationships between schools and community. And right now we partner with 47 Dallas ISD elementary schools, and then we bring in partners to support them. So we have expert staff that work along 4 pillars: social emotional learning, literacy, and a campus environment. And then community activation is where we really rally the community around. So like you said before, I was recruiting the community to give, and now it's about recruiting the community to give back to our schools specifically, or volunteer in them. So we are really volunteer led with liaisons at every school, and we bring in companies and faith-based organizations to just to support our schools. So one of our really successful partnerships this year, and that has been building over many years, is a church actually that was partnering to bring in tutors to the school and do a few campus improvement projects. And now they are just really embracing on all sides. They are going to have teams for every single thing that they do for the school. So every single one of their Sunday school classes are going to take a teacher's classroom, and they're going to, do those bulletin boards and cut up the things and, be reading buddies in that class. They are going to have members of the church that are going to be providing tutoring. They are going to do a garden team. They have a courtyard team. They have a one team that's just focused on raising money to support professional development for the teachers. There's going to be another one that does the parent night. And being from a place of privilege, I grew up in a place of great privilege that had a very active PTA and very involved parents. But the schools that we support, 90% of them qualify for free and reduced lunch. So that means over 90% are in poverty, which means that their parents are working many jobs and don't have the time available to come in and do the bulletin boards with the teachers, or, do the things that traditionally you think of the PTA doing. So we rally the neighbors and everyone around to do those. And then we support the PTAs that are there. They just don't have, in one school that is very well resourced, they might have, 600 parents in the PTA, and these may have 6 parents in the PTA. So, we work alongside them to see what ways that we could either just fundraise for them to get them the supports that they need, or be the arms and legs to help. And then we also bring high schools in to tutor with the schools.
Oh, I love this mission.
Mission.
You talk about your privilege, and it's like, I see that at my kids' school right now, where, 80% of the entire school's families are bought into the PTO or the PTA, and they're providing hundreds of hours a week in teacher support and I think about it even from a teacher perspective of, when you're having to make your own copies, and God bless them, the people that make these bulletin boards, people are going to think I'm being facetious, but I loved those boards when I was growing up in school, when you had a calendar for April, and there were little umbrellas
little raindrops.
That was the day of the week. I do not have that gift, but that really did enhance my, ability to love learning and being in this warm environment. So that's really fantastic. And I'm sitting here thinking, Carol must have a million great stories of how she has seen the moment where philanthropy, can come into a place and really transform. I wonder if there's a story, whether it's with United to Learn or North Texas Giving Day or anywhere, where you have seen philanthropy come in. I love the story about the bunk beds. I feel that. And before you said the community came forward, I thought John and I have got to, John's built bunk beds. John,
Yeah.
Can you build some bunk beds for this mother? But is there a story in your career that sticks out to you where you've just seen the power of philanthropy come into these spaces and transform?
There's so many. One of my favorites from North Texas Giving Day actually is the Arlington's Life Shelter. They are a group that supports the homeless. And one of the gentlemen who was in the shelter had heard about Giving Day while he was there, actually. And then a few years later, he was able to give.
Oh,
Wow.
I love those stories, where you are paying it forward.
well, and it's also just about you could be a participant. I don't want to lose, the fact that this happens to us in our life, that you could be a participant, you could be a donor, and then one year a tornado comes and rips out your home, and all of a sudden you had never dreamed that you would be needing these services in an emergency. And I think that was another example. And that's why philanthropy is so important, why nonprofits are so needed, because we have no idea when we're the ones who are going to need to take advantage of these services.
Mm-hmm. Another story is our founder, actually, Abby Williams. She created United to Learn and really solely funded it for the first 6 years. And
Way to go, Abby.
Way to go, Abby. She's incredible. And she really was volunteering. She had done all sorts of things in different education sectors on boards of Teach for America. And and had funded scholarships for students and have done some really, really amazing things. But she really, really has a heart for elementary school. And so she really created this organization that now, rallies volunteers and equips us with the different schools. And it's interesting how much professional development can do for teachers. Mm-hmm. That is something that's behind the scenes. And that's something that I also like holding up, is that, it's like providing the bunk beds is just immediate and amazing and for that one family. But we've also seen some really incredible things when we talk with we work with the executive directors, and they, for instance, saw a need for, of course, culturally responsive teaching and how we can better connect with all of our ethnic diversity and have everyone feel seen in their curriculum. Excellent. And so we need someone to come in, and the best way to get that done is to teach the teachers, on how to do that. And our district is funding a little bit of that, but there's 150,000 students. And so we are able to fund a deep dive with some teachers from 13 schools, to do a book study on that, how to really do culturally responsive teaching, go deeper so that then they can get it to that many more students.
Well, Carol, it's just awesome to hear all of the missions that you've gotten to be a part of. I mean, it's fun to see how you obviously have to stay inspired all the time, getting to be around all these wonderful people and philanthropists. I wonder if you could share, a question we ask everybody is, what's your one good thing? So it's, either a mindset, a tool, a tip that you could implement today to just kind of make life better.
Well, my mantra is dwell in possibility. And I just think that, if you dwell in possibility, there's something that can be done. I love also that saying that the word impossible says I'm possible. I love that too. So I think that helps with resilience and thinking, okay, this particular thing isn't working right now, but what is working right now? I got to know this time, but what is the kernel of, I know you all work so much on fundraising, but what is the kernel that I learned from this that I can take to the next ask? Or what relationship did I build here that they could help me with another connection, or that I could better connect with them next time, or, just dwell in possibility. And, the other thing that my grandmother said was, inch by inch, life's a cinch.
That is true. Eat the elephant one bite at a time. And I also like the dwell in possibility is almost like a permission to be creative and to think outside the box. And I just, would sit here and think about if someone had not had this dream of having a one day that could be concentrated in philanthropy for your community, how much would be lost here, the connections that would have been missed. And you've given your city, a day to completely focus on how we can help other people. And to me, that is such you were dwelling in an immense possibility. And it just kind of challenges our community, and how can we give everyone a day to just sit in, and how we can be helpful to each other, how we can lift each other up. And if it's not my mission, maybe it's your mission. And the good that can come from that is just so wonderful. So I think that's a great piece of advice. Carol, how could somebody connect with you or connect with North Texas Giving Day or even United to Learn? Are you on social media, websites, those kinds of things?
Yes. Yeah. United to Learn is just unitedtolearn.org. And that is our handle on all social media. We would love to connect there. North Texas Giving Day is northtexasgivingday.org. You can go online right now and find a great nonprofit to support, even United to Learn. And yes, that is how, and I'm happy to connect with anyone. My email is cgoglia@unitedtolearn.org. And I have
show notes.
Yeah, it's because you will not be able to spell that Italian name. My one regret on this call is that I couldn't have seen John live trying to figure out how to pronounce that name and then dying and withering a little bit, because I would not have gotten that last name either. Goglia, correct? Okay.
That's correct.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming into our community and just bringing some love and light today. I think our listeners probably got a lot out of this.
We appreciate you.
Thanks, Carol.
Thank you.